Welcome to Scope of Enforcement presentation for Division of Child Support Services. The purpose of this lesson is to help DCSS employees, through education, perform their jobs timely and effectively. Read about the DES True North, DCSS mission statement and job satisfaction descriptions and proceed to the following slide. By reading the different elements within this training lesson and using the job aids provided in the Google Classroom, a new child support service case manager will be able to understand the scope of enforcement. During this video, make sure to press pause to take notes when necessary. Then simply press play to resume. Scope of enforcement objectives: interpret Atlas enforcement case function codes correctly. Select proper job aid and identify Attorney General case actions, criteria to adjust or modify a child support order, criteria required for case closure, and criteria required for a child's emancipation. The job aids for this course can be found in this course's job aids folder. It can be saved in your drive for future reference. Lists and tables needed for this lesson are available as a job aid. It is recommended that you read the information and then open the job aid or port so you may refer to it during the question portions of the training. This course is designed for a new case manager. Depending on location, some DCSS case workers may be specialists while others are generalists. A new or less experienced DCSS employee or specialist may want to review how enforcement is aligned with the other DCSS functions. As a case progresses through DCSS, it will always lead back to enforcement. Enforcement is the underlying function that justifies the work of all the other functions. Any case with an existing child support obligation and/or arrears balance owed is considered an enforcement case. Enforcement cases come from these three orders: 1. Establishment function, 2. Existing cases, and 3. Arrears-only cases. Establishment function: these cases leave the establishment function with an order of assignment ready to be enforced. Existing cases: these orders are cases that open with pre-existing orders. Examples include divorce orders that address child support or foreign orders, temporary orders, interim orders, and conditional orders. Arrears-only cases: these cases no longer have a current child support obligation but are enforceable to collect arrears owed to the custodial parent or the state. What orders does DCSS collect on? DCSS collects payments on. Read over the list of abbreviations and definitions before proceeding. Get set up and processing timeline. The timeliness goals for processing a support order and establishing or adjusting the debt on Atlas are the following: 15 business days when the order is established by DCSS or a partner office. This is called an internal order. 20 business days when the order is from another state, or when the parties obtained an order before applying for services from the Title IV-D program. This is called an external order. The port will have specific information about enforcement policies. Save this link to access the port. Child support obligations are calculated by the courts to determine an NCP's monthly obligation. Factors affecting this calculation include the items on the following page. Read over the child support obligation calculation factors for each section. Once you are done, proceed to the next slide. The downloadable, updated child support calculator is beneficial to the child support enforcement officer. It allows input to determine obligation and can be used for practice. The online child support calculator can be used by a CP, NCP, or enforcement worker. Self-help child support calculator can be found on this address. Tip: pause this video to open a separate browser or write down the address. What are enforcement case types? Many DCSS offices manage their caseloads by dividing up the different case functions and assigning specific officers to these functions. Enforcement officers, debt workers, and other DCSS functions. In order to help identify which function a case is currently in, Atlas automatically identifies the case's status and updates accordingly. Case function codes help case officers identify where a case currently falls within the case continuum. Contains two letters, the first represents the primary function, and the second represents the sub-function. Together the letters identify, to an enforcement officer and others, where the case is when they access it in Atlas. Case function codes help case officers identify where a case currently falls within the case continuum. Look over this chart to identify the primary and secondary codes. Proceed when you are ready. The two main primary functions used by enforcement officers are, enforcement, E, collections, C, but could include, intake, I, paternity, P, order of establishment, O. The second letter of the code is the sub-function, locate, L, debt, D, both, B, or neither, N. Function codes are in various Atlas screens. Look for the area labeled FUNC, usually on the right side, in the Atlas screens that follow. Observe where the code is located. Many Atlas screens include the code, but not all. EN located in the debt list for NCP here. EN located in the case status screen here. Get setup and processing timeline. When DCSS can no longer act on a case without judicial action, the case is referred to the Attorney General's office. Consult with your local attorney's office when the case meets the referral criteria. The Attorney General's office handles the following referrals or actions on behalf of DCSS. The role of the Attorney General's office. Review the job aid that shows the role of the AG's office. You can find more information about each of the AG's roles on the port. Look over this chart to learn more about the Attorney General's office role. Proceed once you are done. Policy, adjustments and modifications. The purpose of this policy is to provide a working knowledge of how cases are reviewed for a modification of a child support order. Modification may result from a review to evaluate any changes in the circumstances for the CP, NCP, or a child that may justify an adjustment to the support order amount. Modifying a child support order to the right-sized amount based on the party's situation, including the NCP's ability to pay, promotes compliance with the order. The role of the Attorney General's office. Look over this chart and take any notes needed. Press play when you are ready to proceed. Every 3 years, DCSS must notify the parties of their right to request a review of their child support order. Open the Port and Review section. Modification, Review and Adjustment, Policy and Procedure. Cases are reviewed for a modification upon receipt of a request from the NCP, the CP, another jurisdiction, or when DCSS determines a modification is necessary. The review is conducted according to the Arizona Child Support Guidelines and Selection Criteria. The 180-day federal timeline begins when the start date field on the REAM, Review and adjustment mod detail. Screen is populated and stops when the complete date field is populated. Age of majority, emancipation. A child ceases to be a dependent upon reaching the age of majority as determined by state or tribal law, however, depending on the state's provisions, may remain eligible for child support for a period after emancipation. The age a person is no longer considered a minor child under government laws. This law is different from state to state and tribe to tribe. In Arizona, a child is emancipated when, on the date of the child's marriage, on the child's 18th birthday and graduation from high school or age 19, whichever comes first, when the child is adopted, or when the child dies, for cases where Arizona is the responding jurisdiction. Other jurisdictions are subject to the age of majority of that initiating jurisdiction. Case closure is a three-phase process that begins with the pre-closure assessment. In the assessment phase, the case is reviewed to determine if the case meets the closure criteria. Open the port and read Section 1 Assessment Phase. The second of the three steps is to review the case closure codes to make sure the appropriate code is used. There are 33 different codes. Open the port and review Section 2 Appropriate Case Closure Codes. Clicking the code will open more detailed information about each. Reviewing the case to determine if one of the required steps is appropriate prior to using the case closure code is the third phase in the closure process. Open the port and review Section 3, Case Preparation for Closure. Thank you for completing the Scope of Enforcement module. The job aids for this class are available in the index section of the Google Classroom. Ask the instructor for assistance if needed.